What, pray tell, is this democratic socialism? Now, somebody with half a brain would probably do a quick search on it before spouting off on a video about it. The most interesting aspect of it, to me, is it operates on the assumption that you have the ability to take from others. So, in the case of this guy that he looked old and wise, said that $20 billion per year could end homelessness, just as an example. I don't have $20 billion a year. If you take the 333 million people of the United States and divide that into 20 billion, I'm not sure what you get. Does it be like $300 a person, or is it $600 per person per year? Every man, woman, and child in the United States, including the homeless ones, which wouldn't be capable of it. But I think what happens is, as they become proponents of this class warfare that we're being introduced to, or that has been declared, they look at the billionaires and they say, well, Elon Musk has such and such $1 billion. Jeff Bezos has such and such $1 billion. George Soros has such and such $1 billion. The list goes on. The arch princes of Saudi Arabia have, some say, trillions of dollars, which makes sense to me, because if you use US dollars to buy gasoline, what are you going to spend it on over there, you know? The guy adds on, though, that is per year. My problem with that is looking at it from a macro level. There's money, and then there's money, and then there's equity. And money does certain things in some segments than it does in others. You can throw all the money in the world you want to at a problem, and you may not find the solution, because you need that money to transfer into people's sentiment, into people's value in building, providing, producing. There's a segment of the homeless population that perhaps $20 billion, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't take into account how much of that homelessness is due to mental illness, due to elective lifestyle. You just don't want to have a roof over your head. You like living wild. You like being a urban camper. You like drugs, and you don't want somebody to tell you not to go after the drugs. You want your lifestyle to be based around getting that fix. Does $20 billion take care of that? It's interesting. The guy in the interview, though, he sort of slid, maybe it's 36 billion, so on and so forth. A narrative, in my opinion, is being painted of the reason for poverty has to do with individual wealth, into the disparity of individual wealth. I get it when you look at, say, a rock star like Garth Brooks. Personally admitted that he's made more money than even his grandchildren could spend. And they calculate it like you could spend $20,000 or $50,000 a day and still have a surplus of money left over. It's easy to look at them and say, well, if you spread that wealth around, then you'll get somewhere. In my understanding and in my experience, that isn't how the economy truly works. I would disagree with a video that I saw. I think it might have been Rachel, or it could have been someone else, but it was along those lines. Like, if you make more than $1 million a year, then F off. I don't care about you. How dare you make more than $1 million? Nobody needs more than $1 million a year, or something along those lines. Is a capitalism-based economic system perfect? Given human nature and given the weaknesses of laws and cronyism and mercantilism and regulation against some, deregulation of others, the people who pull up the ladder behind themselves, intellectual property, innovation. No. It's far from perfect. However, the advantage it has over any other system is market testing. Go to a grocery store, and bananas just come to mind because that's something that Lex Friedman brought up in a recent podcast. The difference when he was growing up in the Soviet Union versus nowadays. It fascinated him how the abundance of bananas in a grocery store. What gets the bananas to the grocery store? They're planted somewhere in a far-off land, so there's seeds that have to be bought. There's the land that has to be owned and cultivated. Part of cultivation is there machinery or labor involved. You have to pay that. Each step of this market process is another tier in the economy of bringing that banana to essentially your kitchen. If you try to bypass that through central planning, because somebody declares every man, woman, and child deserves a bushel of bananas in a country that has billionaires, well, you can't bypass that market. You'll end up with gaps in the supply chain, similar to the gaps in the supply chain that we have right now. Which, to me, in the end, because you have a government that holds their finger on the scale of balance, and I'm not saying that that is wrong, don't misunderstand, because there are people who take advantage of laws no matter what. You never know who the smartest person in the room is. So anytime you've got your finger on the scale, meaning you're throwing off the weight of something because of a need or because of a perceived need, and that is, it'd be ignorant of me to not admit that's necessary sometimes. Well, when that ends up being the case, then from the top down is the administration. You've got what's supposed to be a Department of the Interior. Are they not addressing the reason why we have these huge gaps and giving us an honest answer in these huge gaps of supply? In my case, if I'm fixing a vehicle at work and a technician brings me a checkout that has more than 3 issues, I am seldom able to single source the parts that I need for that vehicle. So say commercially I use Advance Auto Parts, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and AutoZone. Here lately, I can't just go to Advance and say, okay, yeah, they've got an alternator, they've got a starter, and they've got all the gaskets I need for that engine. I've got to get one piece from them, one piece from someone else, one piece from the dealership. That's a problem. It slows down my efficiency, and it slows down how quick I can produce value to my customers, because they're not producing value to me. And I'm not able to properly reward the place because they produce value for me, because it's so spread out. It's so layered out there. Nobody's doing the one thing like, okay, how can we put all this together? There's an interruption somewhere. Somebody's holding it back. You want to call it a they or a them. Blame this group, that group. It's beyond that. There you go. Economics on a Tuesday from a frontline manager.